So I got the drivetrain out of the Mustang. This was easier for me just to take the engine hoist, lift the car up in the front, and then roll the K member out with the transmission, and then bring it into the garage. But K member is going to get swapped out for a UPR, but this just makes it easier to get it moved around where it needs to go. Uh, T5 is going away. My buddy wants it. Tramic's going on with the Pro 5.0. But when I was looking at this motor, I was amazed to see just how clean everything was. Almost like it was a brand new crate motor or something. And it is. Someone put a new motor in there in 2004 or somewhere around there. So it's got a new motor, new crate motor in there, which is why everything looks brand new. Lifter valley looks perfect. All the rockers and everything looks brand new. So the direction is the stock bottom end, trick flow heads, long tube headers, just regular stuff. The Typhoon intake, I got rid of that, and now I have the Edelbrock Performer intake. And I like the Edelbrock Performer look a lot better. So it's still the old style Edelbrock. I don't like the newer ones. I don't like the trick flow intakes. So this is what I got. The side plate, I polished it out and I'll clear coat it. Same thing on the valve covers. I did the one. It still needs to be finished, and then do the passenger one. But once they're where I want them to be, I'll just clear coat them. That way I won't have to worry about them again. Same thing on the intake. Clean them up and then paint the intake silver. So it'll be a silver intake with the polished side cover and valve covers. But so this won't have the bolts running through the intake runners. So at least the runners are all going to be the same. So this is where I'm going with it. The Typhoon intake is basically going to get transferred into this intake. So the same thing I did to that is going to be done to this one. But it's just a matter of lining up the runners, resizing them to fit in there, doing the lower and the upper. I don't touch any of the floors on either or, and I don't touch the short side turns on either or. The only thing I touch is the roof and the walls. You can't touch the short side or the floors unless you're into this kind of stuff. I'm not a design engineer, so all I do is I clean them up and size them to be where they need to be at for matching. So if you've never done it before, don't touch the roof and don't touch the floors and don't touch the short turns on it. You can only do roofs and walls. But on the upper, it started at 182 on the height and 110 on the width. My finishing is 190 by 116 will be the new size. On the lower, it's going to be 192 by 116. I'm starting at 184 on the height and 107 on the width. Piece of paper, I just trace it out of the gasket, cut it, take a micrometer, verify that it is the same size as the gasket opening. Then I'm just kind of using it as a rough gauge to kind of get me started on the runners. As far as getting down inside of the runners so that they're even all the way through, just zip ties cuts the size. So this is 116, this one is 192, and this is 2.0. I did this at 2.0 because at the front of the intake the opening is already larger as cast. But once I cut them, make sure that they are the right size with the micrometer, and you should be able to just reach in there with your height one, and it should just flow right through there. If it drags or bends, then obviously it's not the same size. Same thing on the width. You should be able to just run through there, slight drag, whether you're up here or you're down there. That's how I'm doing it, to make sure it's as close as possible to being the same size throughout. But with that, it comes time to duplicate the Typhoon. So that's half of it done. I ended up taking, since I don't want a cow hood, I ended up taking out 1.5 inch of runner. Same method, sawzall to cut down, and then a Dremel to cut across, and then the porting bits to blend it. I'm not knife edging the front of it. They're still going to be blunt faced, just rounded corners. So it'll look like this as cast, but just farther back. The Typhoon intake, after I did this to it, it was too much of a huge improvement for me to not do it again. So my only complaint with that intake was the runners having the bolts going through there, and I didn't really like the look of the intake. So this is why I'm doing it again on an Edelbrock intake. For the center of it, you can see how much material I've already removed, and then I kind of beveled it. But this wall on this side that I've changed is more in line with the runner, versus this side, it kind of, the runner comes up and then this kicks out and then comes forward. I wanted it to be as flat as possible. So it's kind of hard to see how far it kicks out, but I took a lot of it out. And then just kind of blending it. Still needs a ways to go on there. Same thing as a Typhoon, you can't smooth these all the way out because of the ridges. So there's not enough material because of this indentation to be able to make them completely flat. So again, they're just rounded along there. That's what it looks like. It's getting there. I'll just spend a little bit more time on it. But the side plate polished, wasn't too hard to do, mostly sandpaper. Valve covers themselves, because they're so pitted, so coarse, I ended up hitting it with heavy grit sandpaper on a cutoff wheel to at least get me started. I think it was I don't remember what it was, what grit it was, but just enough to get rid of all the pit, and then sanding it from there. Then as far as the lower intake, I mean, you can see it's a pretty clean shot through it. But the one thing I didn't do that I'm going to do on these ports, I still need the heads in order to finish the lower intake, the head port. But you have your injector which comes up through there. Well, there's a big old hump that starts back there and then works its way up. On the other one, I didn't do anything with it because I was still running the E7s. On this, the hump is removed, and then I can kind of finish it up once I have the heads, but it kind of gets rid of that big old bump right there. The only thing you have to do is to be extremely careful not to take away the seat for the injector. So you really can't go much farther than that. I could have gone a little bit less, but I still have enough. So when you look at the actual seat, it's actually pretty close versus, it's kind of hard to see. But that's what you got to watch for if you're going to cut them out. But that's what it looks like. So it kind of steps from a smaller runner to a little bit bigger on the lower, and then you got your heads. So that's where I'm at and what I'm working on.